Hey, want to know the future stars of Australian MMA? Well, if you watch Demolition Fight Series 14, May 25th on Triller, which is the former Fight TV, then you can find out just who they might be. I'm your host, Mitchell Tinley, Australian MMA podcast, and we're going to kind of break down some of, and boy do I just mean some of, the fights of the great invention of Wayne Carl, the college basketball of mixed martial arts, Demolition Fight Series. People hate that word. People hate that analogy. But boy, do I mean it with the utmost respect. It's because you watch college basketball and you find out who the superstars will be in the NBA draft. You know who will be picked number one. In Demolition Fight Series, I feel like it's always a majority amateur show. They have some pros every now and then, which in this card they do, and boy, we're going to talk about that fight as well. But a lot of the fights are just they're always like 19, 20-year-olds, and they have like 10 amateur fights. They win belts, and they're treated like superstars. And you get to see who is going to be an absolute champion. I mean, already in itself, you know, they've produced guys like John O'Mikalev, Harry Webb, guys like that have won belts and fights there, and they've gone on to be friggin' superstars and on the UFC radar and whatnot. So if you're ever wanting to kind of get in on the ground level of a superstar, I mean, my very first interview, I think, with Harry Webb was at Demolition Fight Series, and we're talking about his 3 belts that he won and whatnot. And now you look at him, he's a superstar. He just signed a 12-month 5-fight deal with Tinley MMA, and they basically sold the house and gave it to him because that's how much of a superstar he is. So I'm going to cover some of the fights. These are my 3 little like standouts from the amateurs, and then the 2 pro cards, which is Mark Funari versus Perona. I know his first name. I apologize for that. And of course, Lukaz Catubig versus Aidan Aguilera, both like 20-fight veterans of the sport. So massive pro fights. But the amateur standouts for me. So, of course, like I said, go hit up Demolition Fight Series on Instagram, Facebook. Go hit it up on Triller. I think it's Fight TV. Demolition Fight Series 14. Check it out, May 25th. Money well spent. Great performance. Great. The commentators on it, I think it's Jason Petropoulos and someone else. But like, even the notes, they're all written by like Wayne Carl. It's so informative. Just when like fighters are walking out, you are going to learn so much about them, their gyms, where they're from, their past experience. Like, it's almost like scouting reports are written. Like, I know this is not something that they have adopted, and I think they don't like me saying college basketball because I think it means like lesser. But I said at the start, it's like it's a massive compliment because it's like they are really the proving ground for, pun intended, of the next big stars in Australian MMA. So first standout, Konah. It's like Konah. So Konah Idris. He's 20 years old at 170, and he's from Westside MMA. And apparently, he won by like the slickest knockout. Like, he switched stances, and once again, did not write down the name of the guy that he beat, but it was like Anderson Silva style, like slickness. I know that is the most ridiculous comparison, but he really was like, you didn't even notice that he switched stances. Like, it was so smooth. And then his rear hand became his jab was his rear, and the way he stepped through and sliced, it was just, yeah, it was amazing. Anyway, apparently he was 120 kilos 2 years ago. But yeah, start of a knockout. Go check it out. Go follow him on Instagram or whatever. But just very, very impressed with that kid. Another one was a kid from King's MMA, Tyrone Arvan, 21 years old. I think he trains under Hoshi Friedrich. I haven't had too much to do with him, but I do know that he's been around Australian MMA for quite some time, and really, really knows the game. So yeah, watching Tyrone just on top and move around, and he looks like he's going to be a bit of a stud as well. And at 21 years of age, you got to be impressed. But I feel like my honourable mentions standout for Demolition Fight Series would have to have been Jett Fisher. Now, he's 19 years old. He's already the amateur featherweight champion of Demolition. I believe already defended his belt. He's 9-2 as an amateur at 19. I think he's out of Primal MMA. I think if it was correct, he's already a brown belt at 19. Like, it's just like I've said it before, but like, if you're not already training as an embryo, like, it's too late these days. Like, these kids are killers. Jett Fisher's only losses have been to Jake Piper, who we've had on the show before. He's an absolute stud. And Mason Nabetsu out of Absolute MMA, who's a very good fighter as well. Jett Fisher, I don't know he's young, but like, let's go pro. You're going to make the Maoki brothers look old. Like, who are 20 and 19 as well. Like, it's just ridiculous, the skill level. And a lot of these amateur kids are like, and they're kids, are like 10 fights deep. But anyway, Jett Fisher, I think, looked amazing, looked incredible. Shout out. I don't know if you listen, but shout out. I think you're a stud, and you're going to go really, really far. I wanted to move on quickly to the pros. I really won't take too much of your time, guys. 5-10 minutes, if that. Like I said, time code's always below. Mark Funari won his pro debut. I think he was 5-1 as an amateur. He won by 3-naked choke over Peter Perona, who was also on debut. Just great. You saw everything from Mark Funari. I always like guys. The same thing happened to Harry Webb, where like he's starched people ever since, right? But his pro debut was like a decision. Like, he went to a decision. Or it was like third round rear naked choke or something like that. And it was cool because it was like, you get to see so much of them and they sort of figure it all out, and then they go on this run of like putting everyone to sleep, rather than just sort of nothing but first rounds and then you don't kind of know how they'll go. Mark Funari kind of showed a bit of everything. Now, he trains out of Combat One, which is the great Sammy Haywood, who got Jono Mikalev to a Hex welterweight title and had, I think, a 7-3 MMA career, and that was back when getting fights was hard. So he had a great career, and he kind of built Combat One. Wasn't even that keen on starting a gym, and he just had so many fighters that wanted to fight and built it around Jono Mikalev, and they've got some good fighters. I think it's Alan Newen. He's a great fighter as well. D. Samasoni, who was supposed to take on Mad Max Kelly at Beatdown Promotions, but he's going to have a good pro career as well. So Combat One starting to really build a very strong gym and a very strong showing in Australian MMA, and it is only going to continue with Mark the Bear Funari. I would like to officially, though, change his name to Kung, so it's Mark Kung Funari. Also, if you saw the dexterity and like how he kicked and his flexibility, I think Peter Perona caught his leg and I lifted it above his head, and Funari like didn't even move off the spot, and then just kind of gathered himself, which I thought was ridiculous. But yeah, the grappling was insane by Mark. I think he'll be a contender really soon. Like, really soon. Like, I would like his next fight to be against someone who's like either like that similar height, like a Kyle Maoki. Brody Markey. I keep saying Kyle. Kyle's lighter. Brody Markey, I think, would be a good one because he's at lightweight. Yeah, they even asked him post-fight if he was watching the Aidan Aguilera fight, which was next, and he was like, nah, I'm have some beers. Which I think Funari just like, keep putting a microphone in his face. And he's really good. I'd like to see him maybe against a Brody Markey, or if you don't want that fight, maybe like a Khan Husmak, who had like a similar height but has been a bit of a skid lately as his 0-2 start. So maybe that fight. But yeah, I think Mark Funari is already represented, I think, by Platinum One management. So there's already people out there that believe in him. But yeah, I think if you want to get on a hype train and you want to get on one early before everyone else, Mark Funari might be the guy, and now might be the time. But we move on to the main event of Demolition Fight Series 14. Like I said, do hit up Demolition Fight Series, follow them on Instagram. And of course, death threats and all the, you're an idiot, Mitchell, you don't know what you're talking about. Australia MMA _ Aidan, the premature finisher, Aguilera, taking on Lukaz Catubig. Both men, 20 fights apiece, roughly thereabouts. Lukaz fought, just about everyone. Aidan Aguilera we've had him on the show before. If you want to find out more about him, look up the Aidan Aguilera interview. Always good to chat with Aidan. He's an absolute pisser. I think I even did a podcast with him once upon a time, on his podcast. But he once won the Eternal MMA Lightweight Championship by checking a leg kick from Jack Becker and breaking his leg. Not the best way to win a title, but, there's worse ways. He's a top contender. He's been, this felt like a real fight of the journeyman, if you will. But the interesting thing, it came in as almost like a loser leaves town match. And I feel like Lukaz will kind of be around and fight some guys next, and maybe fight Medina or just that sort of deal. But I feel like the performance of what Aguilera, he looked great. And I know it was against, a guy that was also kind of on a bit of a skid, even though he was coming off a win, I think a knockout win over Joshua Riley. But I feel like Aidan Aguilera, you could throw him right back in the mix. You could throw him right back in against the loser of David Martinez versus Wes Kappa. They're fighting, and the winner will go on to fight Harry Webb, which was announced on the Eternal MMA show. August 16th, they'll take on Harry Webb for the Eternal Lightweight title. So, maybe Aidan Aguilera could take on the loser, David Martinez, again. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I'd rather see him versus Wes Kappa. So, yeah, if I'm gonna make a selfish prediction and a fan pick, if David Martinez beats Wes Kappa, so Wes Kappa loses, I want to see Aidan Aguilera versus Wes Kappa, because the Muay Thai, he dropped Lukaz 3 times and then eventually ended up finishing with a choke, but he was pretty much gone, conscience-wise. Aidan Aguilera just looks so slick, so violent, and he talks a lot of shit, and he jokes around a bit, but he is so violent. Trains with Matt Myers, the former Eternal MMA middleweight champion, who is just one of the most violent men out there. Aidan, I think he's still got a lot left in the tank. He said it himself, he's probably not going to make the UFC, not at 10-7. But he could still be a champion. He is a champion. He won the Demolition Fight Series title. One of their past champions, I believe, was Abdallah Biata. So when Wayne Carl does do pro fights, man, he does them better than anyone. But yeah, I'd like to see Aidan Aguilera kind of take on a Wes Kappa. I don't really want to see him against Martinez again. So if Martinez loses, I wouldn't mind Aguilera taking on a Luke Daly. That would be, I feel like that could be good. That would be a nice matchup. But, who knows? Who do you think Aidan Aguilera should fight? Australian MMA _ on Instagram. But guys, that about does it. I just want to do a quick little shout out because I do love the Demolition Fight Series cards for, the many reasons I said, scouting the future champions, and of course, every now and then, and like Wayne Carlos said, he could do a pro fight. He could do a pro fight card if he wanted to, and boy does he prove it every single time he puts one on. They got one of the best matchmakers, I think. Demolition Fight Series. I think it's Josh Warner. Shout out to him. Yeah, guys, hit me up, Australian MMA _ on your thoughts. Other than that, stay safe. And I mean that more than ever these days.